TNT, It Rocks the Earth by Claude Bristol. He who does not know what the world is, does not know where he is. And he who does not know for what purpose the world exists, does not know who he is, nor what the world is. A first-century message for those of you who seek to learn and make progress. I gently lay this in your laps. I do so without the slightest fear, but that it will turn your world entirely upside down, bringing you health, wealth, success, and happiness, providing you understand and accept. Remember, TNT is a dangerously high explosive, so when you gather it closely, handle it gently. Down through the centuries, its power has destroyed those who sought to misuse it. Therefore, exercise great care that it is used only for good. Do not misuse it. It can be proved by the teachings of the Bible, certain well-established laws of physics, and last but not least, just plain common sense. Read and determine for yourself whether or not the proofs I offer stand by themselves. Some of you may see only the spiritual side, others recognize the scientific truths, and still others may accept it as just a practical operating device to put you on the road to success. No matter, many know the truth, and for you who will open your minds, the light will pour in with dazzling white brilliancy. I'm indebted to an old friend of mine, an expert on X-ray and electrical high-frequency apparatus, who, when I was a boy experimenting with electricity, called to my attention the first bit of powerful TNT in my pocket. Then I didn't know what it was and didn't understand, but fortunately it has remained there all through the years. As I look back, I realize why he didn't make me understand what it was. He believed in me and knew that when I was ready to accept it, I would. It's taken nearly 30 years, during which time I sought up and down the highways, looking, seeking, and searching for the secret. Feel in your pocket all of the time. There was some in my pocket, mine for the mere reaching. However, I've got a firm grip on it now, and I will divide it graciously, knowing if used wisely it will blow away all obstacles and straighten out the road on which you've been wanting to travel all your life. For many years I was a newspaper man, and frequently I was behind the scenes. I met great men and women, interviewed famous people. Naturally, I studied them and tried to understand what peculiar qualities they possessed that placed them above the others, but their secret evaded me. Then came the war, and I wondered why others made progress, while I seemed to be blocked in my own ambitions. The war did teach me, however, that I could sleep in the mud, eat moldy bread, and live to laugh about it. This is part of my TNT, so remember what I learned. It helped me to give old man Fear a solar plexus blow, and I believe it will help you, hoping to find a royal road to fortune. I read hundreds of the so-called success books, and they took me nowhere. I did the same with books on philosophy, psychology, and still the great secret kept just a jump ahead of me. I joined secret fraternal organizations, hoping that I might find that which I sought. However, just like the bit of TNT, in my pocket the secret was in every book, in the great orders, everywhere, and in fact, right under my very nose, but something kept me from it. You will have to determine for yourself what keeps you from it if you don't get it from TNA. It's there. If you don't find it in the printed word, look between the lines, as I've done my best to present it to you. Following the war, I became a member of a coast-wide investment banking organization, and during the years I cherished quite a dream, as did thousands of others in all lines of business. Only to discover that the air castles which I builded were on an unstable foundation, but something which turned the world upside down financially entirely obliterated my air castles, and I became afraid. I got lost in the fog. Everywhere I turned, something fell in on me. Are you afraid? As an executive of the organization, my responsibilities multiplied. Our business, due to the economic changes which were taking place in the world, faced a crisis, and many people failing to understand the catastrophe which had overtaken business everywhere were critical, all of which brought worry and many sleepless nights. I found myself dreading to go to my work, fearing that each day would bring added misery. The weeks went on and conditions got worse and worse. I was baffled. Several times I talked about getting out of the business, and one day in the latter part of June 1931, I made up my mind to leave. I mentioned it to one of the women with whom I had been associated for several years and saw nothing but reproach in her eyes. That night I tried to sleep. Again I found it impossible. I paced the floor for hours. When at about 3:30 in the morning I suddenly stopped and sat down. I was face to face with myself. I could follow the inclination to run and leave the others to carry on by themselves, or I could stay and do my share, a duty which I knew was mine. I caught myself saying almost aloud, "Right is right. It's always been right. It's always been right. It can't be otherwise." Something I had been taught since infancy. Suddenly there appeared to be an unfoldment. Out of the air came a voice saying, "What have you been seeking all these years? What were you taught? What did you learn? Where are you going? Where have you been? Where are you going?" I jumped to my feet, crying, "I know it. I've got it now. It's the secret. That's what they tried to teach you. It is the royal secret, too. Out of the air, something told me that I would find those identical words in a book which had many years before been given me and which I had tried to read, failed to understand and put aside. It was written by a great man, Albert Pike, a mystic, a poet, and a scholar. Grabbing it from the shelf, feverishly I ran through the pages. The words were there and I understood immediately. I now had the key. I could see a broad, smooth highway, and at the end of that highway, a perfect flood of gorgeously beautiful radiance. That's the road you are on now. What a simpleton you have been. They tried to teach you, they tried to help you, and you kept your mind closed, thinking that you alone could find the road and stay on it. Open your mind. I was nearly overcome with the sheer joy of it all. My fears, my worries had disappeared. I smiled. I knew that I was right and that everything would be right for me from then on. I slept like a baby. There was a different atmosphere in the office that day. The oppressive black clouds which hung over us began to fade away. I told the woman, she with the reproachful eyes, what had happened, and she smiled a knowing smile. She helped me get back on the track, and I can never repay her. As one learned man said, all of us are born with the ability to differentiate between right and wrong, and with the ability to achieve, but some of us must run head on into a stone wall, smash ourselves to bits before we really know what it's all about. I hit the wall with a terrific crash, and it was the greatest and finest thing that ever happened to me. Many, noting the transformation, asked for an explanation. I told some of my closest friends. Knowing it will help, I give it to all of you. Since I caught this theme, the book has been put to use by thousands of individuals, firms, and organizations. In addition, I have talked and lectured in person and over the radio to many additional thousands, and I am very happy to say that, without exception, phenomenal results have been obtained by those who have understood and applied the principles and mechanics outlined herein. The morale of our whole organization was at its lowest ebb. Everyone was discouraged, afraid, by the very necessity of things we had to do and about face. My job was doing everything I could to help the other fellow because I knew it was right. At first, I was perplexed as to the methods I should employ to help them, but I used my own system in calling upon the subconscious, and the inner voice said that I should talk to them. Right is right, some were skeptical, but I said to myself, I can prove that I am right. And during the week that followed, I spent every waking hour reviewing the books that I had studied through the years. Naturally, the Bible came first, then followed studies in yogiism, the philosophies of the old Greek and Roman masters, and of the later-day teachers and students. I again deliberated over the meditations of Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, reread Hudson's Law of Psychic Phenomena, another book, The Gist of It, written by a brilliant physician, Hayden Rochester. Again, I studied my books on physics, electricity, and those on the vibrations of light, and discovered that not only was I right, as I knew I would be, but that peculiarly the same general basic principles ran through them all. I reread numerous books on psychology and found the same story everywhere. Subsequently, I quoted excerpts, and lo and behold, things began to move. It has occurred to me again and again that all men and women who use this power are showmen, or to use the words of my newspaper days, headliners, those who hit the front page. Something causes them to toss away the bushel basket under which they hide their heads, and they arise above the commonplace. Surely you will agree they may have the power to the nth degree, but if they do not become headliners, they never get a niche in the Hall of Fame. It doesn't follow that they are newspaper publicity seekers, because some of them are very reticent, and by their very reticence are showmen. Others adopt certain peculiarities or use certain devices to make them stand out from their fellowmen. Some wear an efficacious smile, others scowl, and still others have a certain charm of manner. Long hair, whiskers, and sideburns play their part. Flowing robes and distinctive dress are worn by others. The showmanship of some is evidenced by red neckties, others by spats, affected manners. Where is your niche? Many master the art of oratory, the science of warfare, banking, statesmanship, politics, the arts, but all of them stand out in the full glare of the calcium. Headliners, the number is legion. I mention a few of those of history and today. Demosthenes, Nero, Julius Caesar, Christopher Columbus, Cleopatra, Balzac, de Maupassant, Sir Isaac Newton, Joan of Arc, Cromwell, Edgar Allan Poe, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, Bismarck, Graham Bell, General Grant, Seal Hodes, Pym, T. Barnum, Clemenceau, Kitchener, Woodrow Wilson, Joffre, Sir Thomas Lipton, Foch, Mussolini, Winston Churchill, Charles E. Hughes, Lloyd George, Mahatma Gandhi, Ramsay MacDonald, Will Rogers, Douglas Fairbanks, Roosevelt, Henry Ford, Lindbergh, Alfred E. Smith, Lenin, and Hitler. They have been and are found in every walk of life. Gandhi uses this power, I am sure, and I think he is the greatest headliner of present times. You can find many pictures showing him in the modern civilized garb of man, but today, and for several years, he has kept his hair cropped short, worn a loincloth, and a pair of huge spectacles. I have no right to say that Gandhi affected this attire for any particular purpose, but I believe he has done it to focus the world's attention upon himself for India's cause. I make no attempt to explain why those who use this power are showmen. You'll have to determine that for yourself. But remember, a city that is set upon a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and place it under a bushel. Again, the great truths of life become known only to those who are prepared to accept them. I repeat, thousands who use the power for evil brought on their own destruction. We get out of life exactly what we put into it, no more, no less. When we put in good thoughts, constructive efforts, and do good, then we receive like in return, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Detonating caps are now set. Caution signals are out. Be careful. A man's true greatness lies in the consciousness of an honest purpose in life, founded on a just estimate of himself and everything else, on frequent self-examinations, and a steady obedience to the rule which he knows to be rule, which he knows to be right, without troubling himself about what others may think or say, or whether they do or do not do that which he thinks and says and does. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. There are thousands, yes, millions of people seeking the secret, the key to health, riches, happiness, contentment, and a solution of their problems. Through the ages, many men and women have the secret, use the power, and I am positive you can acquire it too if you'll think as you read, accept, and apply the ideas contained herein. What do you want? Where are you going? An old story, I repeat, an old story. Down on a levee in Mississippi, 2 men were dozing. One of them yawned, stretched his arms, and sighed. Gee, I wish I had 1,000,000 watermelons. The other man asked, Ralph, if you had 1,000,000 watermelons, would you give me half of them? No, sir. Would you give me a quarter of them? No, I wouldn't give you a quarter of them. Ralph, if you had 1,000,000 watermelons, wouldn't you give me even 10 of them? No, sir. I wouldn't give you 10 of them. Well, wouldn't you give me 1 lousy watermelon? Say, Sam, I wouldn't give you even a bite of one if I had 1,000,000 watermelons. Why not? Because you're too lazy to wish for yourself. There's much to be gleaned from that story. You'll understand as I proceed. I am fully cognizant that some will scoff. There have always been scoffers, but scoffers never succeed. They never get any place in life, simply become envious, while the doer or the person who is moving forward has to jump over or go around them. They have nothing but a nuisance value in life. Some of you may dismiss all of this as you have done before, as you always will, but for those of you who are interested, are still willing to learn, I promise you can learn. I promise you can learn and then make progress for yourself. Scoffers do not succeed. I take it there isn't an intelligent man or woman who isn't really interested in getting ahead, but I have often wondered if there isn't a negative quality in most of us which precludes us from really starting. There's a saying I thoroughly believe in. If you believe it, it's so. Simply a cryptic statement or digest of what I give you. All the great teachers, Buddha, Confucius, Muhammad, Jesus, and many philosophers taught a great fundamental idea. It is found in all religions, cults, creeds, and sects. Everywhere runs the same general theme, the gist of which, in my words, is, if you believe it, it's so. If you believe it, it's so. If you believe it, it's so. I quote from the Bible. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If you believe it, it's so. Note the similarity. Reduce the whole thing to one word, faith. I have heard many people say the day of miracles is past, but never in my life have I heard a thinker, a student, or a believer make such a declaration. Surely, the days of Aladdin and his lamp are gone. Perhaps they never existed. So with the magic wand, the magic carpet, and all of those things of fairy tale and legend, when I refer to miracles, I mean those things which can be accomplished through faith. Faith in your belief. Faith in yourself. Faith in the persons with whom you are associated. Faith in a power. Faith in that something, which controls the destinies of everyone. And if you can get that faith and dissipate the negative side,